that's Fortis Healthcare for you. It's down more than 0.5%. It came out with its first quarter earnings, which is stable. While top line didn't really grow much, and it's hard to compare given that they divested their rattling business and another international operations in the hospital line, but they did manage a profit on the bottom line as opposed to a loss. Let's tell you about the profit that Fortis has posted. A profit of 87.28 crore rupees versus 45.8 crore rupee loss. So the turnaround in the bottom line coming through for Fortis. I spoke with Mr. Shivinder Singh, Executive Vice Chairman of Fortis Healthcare, as well as Mr. Bhakdeep Singh, the new CEO at Fortis Healthcare. And I began by asking Mr. Shivinder Singh about the earnings that the company has posted and what really worked. The income from operations is completely flat. What was the growth that the company saw in the domestic hospitals business?
Well, I think as you see the business growth performance over the last quarter, we've grown on our EBITDA margins about 26%, EBITDA margins at 26% as a combined business between hospitals and diagnostics. Basically coming at the back of rationalizing the portfolio that we have, looking at the different channel mix that we've done and improving the quality of the clinical work that we're doing, and therefore resulting in a better margin for the business. And that's the continuous trend that we've had over the last couple of quarters, basically looking at improving the quality of business, improving the margin that we are seeing for the last many quarters now.
Now, you've been working on a strategy to reduce patient stay. How much progress have you seen on that in this first quarter? What has been the average revenue per bed in the first quarter?
Right, I think this is really a journey for us and more than a milestone. And we've been doing this for many years now. I think firstly, on a length of stay basis, we were 3.72 days length of stay for the company last year, which has come down to 3.53 days now, which is, I think, a pretty significant improvement considering the fact that we are already very tight run from a below 4-day perspective as an organization. Our revenue per occupied bed, our RPOB as we call it, was 123 lakhs last year, which is at 140 lakhs now, which is again a 14% growth. Again, demonstrating the fact that we are doing better quality of clinical work, higher margin business, and yet sending patients back home sooner. Therefore, demonstrating the fact that the clinical capabilities and the efficiency of the organization is continuing to ramp up pretty significantly.
Was there an improvement in the occupancy rate as well?
Actually, the occupancy rate have been largely flat quarter on quarter. It's probably a percentage change of 1% or so. Largely been flat, and that, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that we're changing our channel mix, we're looking at pruning some of the businesses that are probably not very high quality businesses for us, yet focusing on making our businesses stronger by improving the clinical capabilities. And therefore, the occupancy is not really changed too much. But having said that, the EBITDA of the company, the operating performance of the company has gone up by 26% year on year.
Well, there are some exceptional items that have boosted your bottom line. Operational profit has also doubled from a year ago. Has it been due to shutting down of some unviable clinics? What's the outlook for your margins?
Well, I think it's a combination of everything that we've been doing. It certainly helps from the fact that we've walked out of some of the unprofitable businesses. We've also walked out from many channels that are dragging our profitability down, which is also partially why the occupancy numbers haven't really moved too much. But it's also coming on the back of improving significant levels of clinical capabilities in the organization. So I think the mix of all of that is impacting the improved performance of the company. And the margins have moved pretty dramatically over the course of the last 4 or 5 quarters. So it's not a blip in the air in that sense. I think going forward, as you're seeing the holistic company margin at 16.2% for the quarter, which has gone up by 220 basis points. We believe that quarter on quarter, barring a couple of odd seasonality quarters, that the margin will continue to improve, and in the next 2 to 3 years, we expect the margin of the company to be at about a healthy 20% on an overall India basis.
Is the divestment of rattling the reason for falling revenues of international business? What was the performance of your existing facilities in the Middle East and Mauritius?
Well, I think the Singapore asset sale has almost completely closed the international operations. The last 2 significant assets in our portfolio internationally was the Singapore Radlink facility and the Singapore General Hospital. Both being sold pretty much closes our international assets. We have one lab now that is the last standing of our international portfolio, which we're looking at closing in the next couple of quarters through a transaction. But that's a very, very small portion of our overall sales, and therefore we are now completely an India focused company, and looking forward we're basically going to be looking at the India business as the conversation on a quarterly basis.
Did you add any new beds in the first quarter? What's the update on your Chennai facility and the boutique mother and child facility that you're coming up with in Bangalore?
So, like I've mentioned before, we are looking at these two hospitals that you just talked about being the last two greenfields for the next few years. We are not looking at adding any greenfield hospitals going forward for a period of 3 years after these two roll out. The Bangalore hospital, a boutique mother and child facility, should be rolling out and launching next month. Whereas the Chennai hospital is still stuck in regulatory approvals, and we are hoping that we're able to get through some of the work that they've asked us to do and hopefully get that clearance, though we do not have an exact date for the Chennai hospital as yet. Outside of that, we are looking at adding on some existing beds to our existing facilities, some beds to our existing facilities, and hopefully what we call the bolt-on strategy. But those are in project stages. It will take us some time to get that going, so we don't have any beds that have been added this quarter.
What's the ramp up that you've seen in your Gurgaon facility, FMRI, and the Ludhiana facility?
Well, as I mentioned before, Ludhiana, FMRI has ramped up pretty aggressively from its start of its operations and has almost come at the top of the food chain. It's one of the largest facilities we have in the network now. And this has grown about 20% quarter on quarter from last year. Ludhiana has also been growing pretty well over the 1.5 years that it's been started, and has grown about 34% from the quarter last year. So both have grown pretty well. Ludhiana, of course, is, as I mentioned earlier in the quarter, has become EBITDA positive and continues to now start adding to the bottom line of the company. FMRI had done that quite some time back and is actually pretty healthy profitability for a 2-year-old facility. And we are pretty hopeful that this year as well, both these hospitals continue to add value to the organization.
What was the performance of your diagnostic business?
I think the diagnostic business has continued to shine very brightly in our portfolio. In this quarter, in fact, it's had its highest ever margin at 23%, which was 20.6% of the quarter last year. And therefore, it's had a pretty significant uptick in the business. It's been growing, I think, for 10 or 12 quarters at a trot and continues to show robust performance. And we are pretty positive it will continue to do so for a while before it can get to a peak percentage from an EBITDA perspective. In the context of SRL, we've also come to an agreement and got an approval of the board to offer our existing private equity shareholders through a secondary sale exit should they choose to, because we are contractually obliged over a period of time to give them an exit. And the choice was to go down an IPO or a secondary sale. We've chosen to go down a secondary sale, and we started off the process by appointing bankers and so on and so forth. And hopefully in the next couple of months we should be able to offer any of those private equity investors who choose to exit a secondary sale option.
But if the existing private equity investors are going to be exiting, will the promoters be buying the stake?
Well, the intention is that we are going to look at the private equity sale to get in a new set of private equity investors. So the Fortis shareholding should not have any impact or change. It'll probably be just a round robin and getting a new set of investors should the existing investors choose to exit, which is completely their decision. I think for us it's an obligation to give them a platform. It's their call at whether they want to or how much they want to exit. So that's not something that we can take a call on today at this point in time.
Right, but have the PE investors shown any interest to exit? Have you had any discussions on what kind of valuations are they looking at for an exit?
Well, it's a little early to talk about the valuations at this point in time. I want to mention to your earlier comment as well about our debt equity ratio. As you might recall, Fortis has been a big conversation about our debt over the last couple of years. Our debt today stands at 0.13 debt equity ratio, which is about 600 plus crores, which is completely under control and therefore a much, much healthier position than we've been in the past. We also have an FCCB outstanding of $100 million, which is completely in the money. So from the way the company looks at it, we're reasonably a debt-free company. And therefore that chapter from a balance sheet perspective has completely closed from a Fortis context.
So that was Mr. Shivinder Singh talking about the first quarter earnings of Fortis Healthcare. I also spoke with the new CEO at Fortis Healthcare, Mr. Bhakti Singh, and I started by asking about the strategy for the company, because there is a turn that we are seeing in the bottom line. There's been a profit this quarter, but what's going to be the strategy for the company? Is it going to be growing the revenue sharply, or is it going to be focusing on the margins? Listen in.
Well, the good thing is that, as you just mentioned, we've adopted an India-focused strategy, and we have 1 billion people in this country that need quality health care, and with our geographic presence, we're well poised to be able to provide outstanding health care. I think in terms of focus, there are 2 or 3 things that we're going to be looking at. First and foremost is looking at, from the clinician side, looking at the various medical specialties. You know, everybody knows, we've all heard about the cardiac challenges that we have in this country, the diabetes challenge that we have. So oncology, cancer continues to be a major challenge for so many people in dealing with cancer. I think that in terms of focus, our focus is going to be on delivering what patients need. So if you look at, you know, we have an oncology center in 3 or 4 or 5 of our hospitals now. Cardiac, we do exceptionally well in many of our hospitals. We're doing a lot of good work when it comes to orthopedics. We're doing a lot of good work when it comes to nephrology, diabetes, many of the specialties. So I think that focus is going to be to continue to expand our medical programs, continuing to work with our doctors and nurses to make sure that they have the technology, the equipment, the platforms they need to be able to provide outstanding patient care. And then for our administrators and all of us who work in the Fortis network, we're a patient-centric organization. Everything starts with and ends with the patient, and that starts with me and goes all the way for everyone else in the organization as well. So focus India, focus on clinical outcomes, focus on providing great patient care, and I think that's what the best thing we can do for our patients and for our country today.
But then there are a number of legal cases against Fortis, be it the escorts issue, be it the tussle with the government over free beds for patients, and what we saw in Mumbai as well at the Hiranandani Hospital, which of course is now resolved. Is that an overhang on the strategy or the focus of the management?
I don't think it creates an overhang. I think what, you know, the reality is that, you know, every organization in their various, as they evolve, as they grow, there are different challenges that come along. You know, my job in leading this organization is to make sure that we stay focused on the primary the purpose of the business, which is around our hospitals. Again, as I just mentioned, working with our doctors and our nurses, and you know, we'll as any organization would, you deal with things that happen that potentially can cause a distraction. You have to deal with them. You have to deal with them effectively, but. My number one job comes back to the patient, and we will continue to do that, and that's what we're doing, whether it's in escorts, whether it's in our new FMI hospital in Gurgaon, our various hospitals that we have in Bombay, in Chennai. Continue to stay focused. We have hospitals, administrators, doctors, nurses. My job is to support them and make sure that we don't lose focus, and there might be noise, there might be other things that happen from time to time, but the only thing that matters, the only thing that I come to work every day for is to work for the patient, and that's what we are all doing in the organization. So it's not that's not a company tagline. It's what we believe. It's what I believe, and that's exactly what we're going to do and what we are doing today.
You spoke about a focus on clinical specializations. Does that then mean that you have better realizations? Can you charge patients more?
I think the realization that you're referencing now continues to evolve. As we continue to grow our medical program. So, for example, our heart transplant program today is the biggest program in Asia. Now, in terms of realization, it's quite substantial. We're doing 25 to 30 heart transplants a year, but we can do more, and we will do more. So today we're doing heart transplants. We've done heart transplants in 3 of our hospitals. We did the first one in Bombay in many decades, just 2 days back. But we'll continue to grow our heart transplant program. When we look at our liver transplant program, today we're doing liver transplants in 3 or 4 of our hospitals, but we're looking at where else can we do them. So I think that for each one of our medical specialties, we'll continue to expand. We started our first oncology specialty center in Noida back in 2010. Subsequent to that, we now have cancer centers in 4 or 5 additional hospitals. So I think the opportunities there to continue, apart from cardiac sciences that we do, many of our hospitals continue to take medical specialties, continue to expand the programs, take them to additional hospitals, and I think that's where the realization comes in, that you maximize the assets you have, maximize the resources, the talent that you have, so you can take it out further.
But do you think healthcare overall is getting more expensive, and are patients willing to pay more for better healthcare?
I think people want good quality health care, and I think people want they want to be treated respectfully. They want to know that they're getting the best possible doctor, that they have the doctors focusing on them, that the nursing is focusing on them. I think that if you give them good quality care, you give them good qualified doctors who are passionate about what they do, I think it's like anything else. I think I as a patient would be more than happy to pay for that. I think most of our patients feel that way as well. When you're not well, you want to make sure that somebody's taking care of you, somebody's looking out for you. I think that if you do it well, and I think we have a good value proposition, and I think our patients would agree with that as well.
So that was the management at Fortis Healthcare talking about the first quarter earnings as well as the strategy going ahead. We will slip in